I'd like to welcome everyone to the Contech Wednesday webinar. This is our 5th webinar. I'm delighted to be able to introduce and present Sebastian Kohlmeier, who is from the Allen Institute for AI, and he works on Semantic Scholar. And he will be giving us a complete overview of that project and their response to COVID-19. So very, very relevant, very specific AI content and science topics, which we are very excited about. Just to explain how this works, for those of you who have not joined us before, we're using Zoom webinar. Your mics will already be muted. We do invite questions. Please join us for questions. You can use the Q&A tab at the bottom to post your questions, and we'll be picking them up towards the end. We hope to run for 30-35 minutes, and that will be a nice time frame to cover the presentation. All that remains for me to do is to say welcome Sebastian, hand over to him, and he's going to kick off his presentation now. Thanks, Sebastian.
Great. Thank you, Clive, and thank you to Contact Live for having us today. Let me go ahead and start my screen share. Fantastic. Clive, is the presentation live? Let's see. I assume it is. Sorry about that. Great. So my name is Sebastian Kohlmeier. I'm the Senior Manager for Business Operations at the Allen Institute for AI, based in Seattle, Washington. Today I'm going to give you an overview of Semantic Scholar and our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. To kick things off, I'll talk a little bit about our story. Then I will go into an overview of COVID-19, which is a data set of COVID-19 research that we created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then at the end, I will talk a little bit about some research tools that are powered by Semantic Scholar that we provide to enable researchers to find COVID-19 related research and scientific research in general. So to kick things off, I'll talk a little bit about our story. As I've mentioned initially, Semantic Scholar is part of the Allen Institute for AI, a nonprofit AI research institute based in Seattle, Washington, that was founded by the late Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. Our mission is AI for the common good. Everything that we work on and everything that we publish is free to use and available to benefit humanity. We have a number of different projects at the Allen Institute for AI, which you can see on the right, including open source natural language processing platform called AllenNP, a project around common sense for AI, a computer vision project, and of course Semantic Scholar, which is a semantic literature search project, which I'll talk to you in more detail about today. So a little bit about Semantic Scholar's journey. Our project was started about 5 years ago, and when we launched in computer science with just 3 million research papers. And since then, as you can see on this timeline, we've expanded to neuroscience, biomedicine, added additional scientific content, and now as of 2019 we cover all scientific domains with 160 million plus papers and 7.5 million monthly active users. We also have more than 550 content partnerships with major scientific publishers, academic societies, and content providers that provide us with code libraries, clinical trials, and other types of content that we publish on our website. So why did we start the Semantic Scholar project? The problem that science has is a problem of plenty. Scientists are being overwhelmed by the amount of information that's being published. More than 3 million research papers were published in 2019 in tens of thousands of journals, and the number of publications is growing by 5% year over year, which is making it very hard for any researcher or scientist to stay up to date. Because of this lack of time, researchers can only spend so much time every week reading research papers and keeping up with the research. We're estimating it's about 15 hours a week, and that researchers read about 250 papers per year. You're finding relevant papers to read, and reading the right papers is a continuous challenge, which is why we created Semantic Scholar as a better way to find relevant research and hone in on the papers that are of interest to a specific researcher or scientist. So Semantic Scholar is a free AI-powered research tool for scientific literature. You can find us at semanticscholar.org. Our goal is to extract meaning and identify connections from within papers and surface that information on our website to enable scientists to discover and understand research. And the way that we do that is we apply our artificial intelligence expertise to create features that power content discovery. So if you use our website, you can navigate between papers using citations. You can find new papers using paper recommendations. You can search for papers. We have author and topic pages. And then when you look at specific papers, as you can see in the example on the right, we provide a lot of contextual information that we've pulled directly from the content of the research paper. We have more than 1 billion citations on the website, and you can see that we classify citations by their types. In the example, we have background citations, method citations, and result citations. We also pull in external content like code libraries, videos, clinical trials, presentation slides, pull out figures and tables. We provide highlighted abstracts where we highlight sentences based on the content, all in an effort to enable scholars and researchers to screen papers and figure out what papers are interesting to them based on their research areas. We also provide some other key features that enable you to stay up to date. We have email alerts that alert you when a new paper is published based on an author that you're following. New alerts that are sent when new citations are found. We also have an adaptive research feed that adapts based on papers that you rate, so that you can get relevant new papers and keep track of what's being published. So all these things come together to create a holistic search and discovery experience. However, as you all know, in early 2020, our world changed, and the COVID-19 pandemic was declared, and we received a call to action on March 6th from the White House with a challenge, and they said, we'd like to find somebody who can create a COVID-19 dataset for machine learning and AI analysis, because of our unique position as a nonprofit and as a quote-unquote neutral party that has pulled together scientific content from and papers from many different sources, we were in a great position to take up the call to action and respond quickly. So as you can see on the timeline, the White House reached out on March 6th. We quickly formed a working group with a number of other organizations, including Georgetown University, Microsoft, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, bioRxiv, medRxiv. On March 11th, we finished collecting papers from an initial set of sources, including preprints, PMC, the World Health Organization. On March 13th, that same week, we had a final draft data set ready. And then on March 16th, we released the data set and kicked off a Kaggle competition, which I'll talk more about later in the presentation. Based on this call to action, we created COVID-19, which is our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 is a COVID-19 open research data set. And as I've mentioned briefly in the introduction, the goal was to create a machine readable data set of COVID-19 related research. We are currently updating the data set daily as new research is being published. The data set contains more than 134,000 papers, more than 60,000 of which are full text. And at the bottom, you can see some of the collaborators that we worked with to create the data set and a link to the data set landing page. So why did we go about creating this data set? There are a number of challenges that make it hard for artificial intelligence to analyze scientific text. Typically, scientific papers are published in PDFs, which is not a suitable format for text mining. It makes it very hard for a machine to read the scientific text. A lot of papers are not open access, which makes it difficult to get a comprehensive set of papers. And then the metadata that describes a publication is not standardized, both in terms of the format and the schema. So with COVID-19, our goal is to solve these challenges. We struck out to create a comprehensive data set of papers and preprints from multiple sources. And because of the pandemic, dozens of publishers responded to the call to action and made all COVID-19 related research open access and publicly available for text and data mining purposes, which made it a lot easier for us to get access to tens of thousands of articles to incorporate into the data set. We have an up-to-date data set that is updated daily. We created a clean metadata that is harmonized and deduplicated. As you can imagine, your research papers are published and made public in many different places, and as a content, by aggregating the content, we created a system to harmonize the metadata from all of these different sources. We also provide clear provenance. We keep all of the sources and original licensing information. We created a single format for the full text that is readable by a machine to make it easy to process. So rather than using PDF format, the full text is represented in a JSON representation. And we also incorporated table parses. So we pull structured data from tables so that a machine can read tables, and that was in a partnership with IBM Research. A big reason why we created this data set is because, as I mentioned earlier, COVID-19 publication volume is accelerating. Now, in the past 7 days, 2,500 new papers about COVID-19 have been published, and it's impossible for anybody to keep up and obviously read all of those papers, and the rate is continuing to accelerate. We're also seeing a wide variety of research that's being published in many different areas. If you compare what has happened with COVID-19, and the chart on the right is a little bit old, but you can see that compared to SARS and MERS, the volume is already much higher. And the research is distributed across many different areas, including virology, immunology, and starting to see more and more research in the social sciences and economics as well. So in terms of how we created and structured the COVID-19 dataset, we combined articles from many different sources using our the Semantic Scholar corpus of contents, which includes content from the World Health Organization, PubMed Central, which has full-text content from major publishers, preprints, including bioRxiv, medRxiv, and other sources. We use the metadata and the full text provided by these sources to create a single harmonized full text dataset and metadata file that we publish as the COVID-19 dataset. Without getting too technical, but the way this dataset is structured, at the top you can see an example of what the metadata looks like. The metadata essentially enables you to look up a specific paper in the full text full text file using a PDF ID. And what this allows you to do is to facilitate insights and discovery within the data set. So for example, if you have a question like, does hypertension increase the risks associated with COVID-19? You can then easily retrieve the relevant articles from the COVID-19 dataset and find supporting evidence within the text. And what's fascinating about this specific question is that in order to get the answer, you actually have to read the full text. There's no, for this specific paper that I'm showing here, the answer is not in the paper's abstract. It's not in the introduction of the paper. The answer is in the full text, and the answer is in the tables. So if you can imagine with 2,500 plus papers being published every week, pulling this data out of the published research and keeping track of it is something that artificial intelligence and machines are much better equipped to do than humans who will have a harder time keeping up with what's being published. So in terms of the impact that the data set has had so far, since we published the data set on March 16th, it's been viewed more than 2 million times and has been downloaded more than 100,000 times. We're seeing it used in a number of different settings that I'll talk a little bit more about in upcoming slides. There's a big Kaggle challenge that's running around the data set. There is a Trek shared task. The data set is being used in clinical settings and published research. I have a couple of quotes on the right that talks a little bit about how the data set is used. The first one is from a clinical researcher at Swedish Medical Center in Seattle. She's using the data set to find relevant papers about endoscopy and keep using it to create a survey of related research. And then Teresa, who's a global chief architect at Hewlett-Packard Labs, is using the data set to create a platform that enables companies to get insights into COVID-19 and the impact of COVID-19. In terms of the Kaggle challenge, this was a major component of the White House call to action that resulted in initial creation of the data set. The Kaggle challenge has been very successful. It's one of the challenges that has received the most engagement ever on the Kaggle platform. Kaggle, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a AI and machine learning competition platform where you can create challenges and users and in this case, the questions that were part of the COVID-19 challenge, key questions about COVID includes questions about risk factors, vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics. An example shown on the screenshot of the right. In this case, the example is steel. the idea is, can AI researchers create AI systems that can analyze the text in the COVID-19 dataset to answer these types of questions? And so far, more than 1,300 submissions have been made. And the largest group that has formed is, I believe, has around 800 to 1,000 participants now. And the views that try to answer these questions, and so the submissions are being reviewed and judged by experts. Sometime later is due in July, so there'll be additional insights from that round of submissions. Track COVID is an and can we create use these learnings to discover methods that assist in finding relevant research and that will help with the current pandemic and future biomedical crises. And this competition is now in its second round and showing some great progress as well. And then, of course, we've also had a number of research papers that have been published using the COVID-19 dataset. Here are just a few examples of clinical research papers that have been published and computer science papers. They cover a number of different areas, such as mortality rates, radiological findings, survey of medical imaging data sources, and understanding research hotspots, and new papers are being published every day. So in terms of what other tools have been created by Semantic Scholar that are based on the COVID-19 dataset, I'll go through some of those and then cover a little bit of forward-looking information in terms of what we're doing next. One of the tools that we created that's powered by Semantic Scholar is called SciSite. And SciSite is a great way to investigate networks of science. On the left, you can see an example. If you are looking for specific papers published on certain topics, what SciSite does is it enables you to find groups that are working to answer that specific research question. And the primary goal here was that we were hearing from researchers that there's a lot of duplication of effort. Everybody is trying to answer the same questions. And if you can see who is already working on a specific question, there may be, this enables you to find and discover potential collaboration opportunities, but also reduce the duplication of effort. The tool also enables you to look up co-mentions of proteins, genes, cells, and diseases and chemicals. And the idea here is if specific scientific entities are being mentioned together in the research paper frequently, it's possible that there could be an interesting connection that's worth exploring further. So this is a tool that's continuously updated and is having a big impact on the scientific community. Another tool that we launched is a little bit more advanced. It's called Spike Chord. This was launched out of the Allen Institute for AI office in Israel. And it's a search tool that enables search using an advanced query syntax. So you can do things like search for incubation periods and specific entity types, including chemicals, treatments, etc. Encourage you to check it out and try it out if it's something that you're interested in. And then on Semantic Scholar itself, we provide a number of ways to find COVID-19 related research or any research in general, we have a comprehensive search engine that enables you to search for research. We also have a feed to stay up to date that supports COVID-19 related research from the COVID-19 dataset. So those are all available on our website. In terms of what we're doing next to look ahead, we have a number of new features that we are working on. For COVID-19 specifically, we're waiting on the results of the Kaggle challenge, the second round. Track COVID round 2 is wrapping up. We are actively investing in a number of improvements to our search experience, making enhancements to recommendations. On the right side, you can see a recommended authors widget that we created, and actively expanding our citation graph and working on other key initiatives. So with that, I'd like to quickly acknowledge our collaboration partners at the Allen Institute for AI, Kaggle, Trek, and our other partner organizations that we worked with on COVID-19. And also leave you with some pointers to our website, semanticscholar.org, the COVID-19 dataset. We also have a paper that we published, a preprint on the COVID-19 dataset that we encourage you to read if you'd like to find out more, and a forum where you can ask specific questions. And if you have any other questions about this presentation, please feel free to reach out to me at sebastiankate@allenai.org. And with that, I'll hand it off to Clive for a Q&A.
Well, Sebastian, thank you so much. That was a terrific presentation. Really interesting, so relevant to what's going on in our world. We have one question, an important question. How do I access COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can go to semanticscholar.org/COVID-19, and there will be a download link on the website. You can find all of our historic releases via that download link, and everything is you don't need to register. Everything is freely accessible and available.
Excellent, thank you, Sebastian. I have one question I'd quite like to throw at you, if you could spend a few more minutes on it, which is, what are the major challenges that you've seen facing scientists and researchers working on COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are a few different challenges. One is just keeping up to date with new research that's being published, and performing literature reviews. So there are a lot of organizations and governments that that need to be able to answer questions like, how does COVID-19 impact children, and that results and they need to be able to answer those questions quickly. And traditionally in scientific research, going through the research and answering these types of questions is oftentimes multi-month process, if not longer. And one of the things that we've seen research organizations do is change their processes to adopt this rapid literature review concept. Many times doing literature reviews in a 24-hour spurt and trying to answer a question as quickly as possible. And COVID-19 really helps with those types of challenges, because it gives researchers a comprehensive resource that they can use as a starting point, versus going to the PubMed website to look at published research, a preprint server to look at preprint research. It gives you a way to find all that research in one place.
That's great. Sebastian, we have now got quite a few questions, which I'm going to encourage, because we've got a really engaged audience. So
awesome.
I'll try and fire through them really quite quickly. Listing the challenges, you did not mention the one from crowd analytics, ? Does that make any sense to you?
not familiar with that one. I can
Okay.
follow up. I'm happy to follow up on that one.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that we help you with that. The next one is there any overlap with other data sets?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is yes. There'll always be overlap with other data sets because we're to build COVID-19. We've pulled in other data sets as our source data sets. So, for example, you'll see that all of the COVID-19 coronavirus-related research that's published in PubMed Central is part of the COVID-19 dataset. The World Health Organization has also published a dataset of COVID-19 related research, and we've integrated that into the dataset as well. And our goal really is to be as comprehensive as possible, and we also deduplicate across these different sources. So we kind of pull everything together from that perspective.
That's great, thanks. Samir has also asked, could we get a copy of the PowerPoint? Now, I just want to explain to the whole audience that we will be producing a completely indexed and transcribed copy of this webinar, which will be available within 24 hours on our website. I'm sure, obviously, that will cover the PowerPoint. I'm sure we could take care of that as well, specifically, Samir, if you want to contact us directly and you want the PowerPoint. Next question. You touched on surfaces. I assume I can log on your website and find relevant info. I am not sophisticated with research papers.
Yeah, that's a great question. So semanticscholar.org is as a search and discovery engine, we enable you to find relevant research papers using search queries, just like any standard search engine. If you're trying to obviously get more detailed and find specific information about characteristics of COVID-19, the best place at this point would be to look at the living literature reviews on the Kaggle challenge that I mentioned. That has an excellent summary of the type of information that's been made public or that's been published about how long COVID-19 survives on surfaces, some of the risk factors, etc. That's a great place to look as well.
Cool, thank you. We have now a question which got kind of three parts very quickly. What's the exact role of AI in helping us study the researchers at hand now? Any examples, tools? Where is the text and data mining?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me see if I can properly answer it. I'll try my best. So the role of AI really is twofold in this case. We in constructing the COVID-19 dataset, we've taken a lot of steps to harmonize content, and a lot of that isn't super exciting, but it's necessary to create a high quality data set. AI also is necessary to do things like extracting content from tables in PDFs and pulling that together into structured information. And kind of looking at the applications of the COVID-19 dataset as well. The Trek COVID challenge is a great example of how we're developing AI technology and search technologies to power the discovery of relevant research. I was just looking yesterday at what the Semantic Scholar research team has done for the second round of the Trek COVID challenge, and they're applying technologies that we've developed at the Allen Institute for AI, like a paper embedding system that is trained on our citation graph to find relevant research within the COVID-19 dataset. So those are just some examples. I don't want to get too technical, but this type of data set enables and powers the development of new AI technologies that will help advance the academic search and discovery space.
Excellent, thank you, Sebastian. We have somebody else who's mentioned the slides, which we can follow up on. Two final questions. I think I'll have to call it at the end of these two. The first one is, you mentioned cleaning the metadata was necessary in getting COVID-19 ready for use. Did you engage with any standards organizations in preparing to do so, or did you just design your own proprietary template for the metadata?
Yeah, that's a great question. We ended up creating our own metadata and full text schema, and the reason for that is because the input schema or schemas and vary across sources. Everybody has their own format. There obviously are standards when it comes to JATS XML and other formats the publishers use, but in this case, our goal was to use an output format that was as conducive as possible to enabling researchers and scientists to apply AI technology on top of the data set. And we chose JSON to do that, and took input data in XML format and PDFs and harmonized that using our own schema.
Fabulous, thank you. We have actually now got a further question, two more. I'm going to call it after that. If anyone posts a question after now, we'll follow up after the webinar, because we've done that a few times as well. But in the meantime, question about the updates of COVID-19. Will you implement differential updates instead of having to upload everything each week?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can follow up on that. If that is becoming a pain point, we can look into making it easier to understand differences. We do publish a changelog that highlights what's been added and what's been removed, but in order to actually see what's been added and what's been removed, you do have to process the current set and the previous set. So I'll take that as feedback and follow up.
Fabulous, thank you. And finally, could we know more on SciSite and if their ISA platform for networking with others like-minded?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not familiar with the networking platform that you mentioned, but within SciSite, we make it really easy to find researchers and institutions that are working on a specific research problem. And then from there, I can imagine that by looking up who those researchers are, that you'd be able to quickly figure out how to get in touch with those organizations. We don't have any specific tooling that we have to support networking or reaching out to other researchers on the SciSite platform, but definitely encourage you to use that as a jumping off point to get started.
Fantastic. Sebastian, you've done a fantastic job. It was really, really interesting. Thanks, audience, for attending and also firing those really fascinating questions. I think whilst this was a really exciting event, I hope this is the beginning of our relationship with Sebastian, and maybe we'll have him back at one of our other events later in the year. So thank you exceptionally for that. Just to remind everybody, we will produce a completely indexed and transcribed video that will be available very, very quickly. We'll make that available to all the participants who made it, or those who couldn't make it, and it's also going to be available freely on our websites. Our next main event, which is also registering on our website at the moment, is the Contact Forum. That's on the 9th of June. Please do take a look at that, check it out for us. And also, I just wanted to quickly say, next week we have got the Wednesday webinar devoted to Underline Science. Underline will be discussing their mission to broadcast, capture and present scientific conference information. Again, very relevant to our current times. That will be presented by founder Alex Lazanica and Darrell Gunter, who I think many people know. So tune in with us again, 4:30 next week, registration on our website. Just finally, thank you immensely, Sebastian. We really enjoyed it, and I hope we'll hear more from you very soon. Thanks very much. Thanks for everyone for coming. Bye-bye. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.